Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. This is your host, Andy Curry. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the show. I have on the line with me Kimberly Roush. She has been speaking professionally for 8 years. She has lots of topics she speaks on. Her main topic is who are you when you are big? Her other topics are leadership, communication, emotional intelligence. Kimberly speaks primarily in the U.S. She has written a book that is a bestseller called Who Are You When You Are Big? And Kimberly, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Andy. Happy to be here.
We are happy to have you with us, Kimberly. Tell us about your speaking business. Who are you talking to? What are you teaching them? How are you helping them?
Well, my speaking business is actually an outcrop of my executive coaching business, and I speak primarily to executives, although very often they'll bring me in to speak to their teams and a much broader audience as well. The question, who are you when you are big, is actually a question my coach posed to me many years ago. I was a partner in public accounting. I'd been in public accounting for 22 years. And I hired a coach for leadership and influence. So I had been promoted into a big national role, and quite frankly, I didn't feel like a leader among the leaders of the firm. And I knew how to manage up, and I knew how to communicate up, but influencing was a little different. And so I hired him to help me with those things. And really, long story short, he helped me see that the part of my job I loved was all about coaching and developing and mentoring and challenging and inspiring people. And so after a lot of work with him and exploration, I took the big, bold move of deciding to leave public accounting, take that partner hat off my head, the trophy I'd been going for 22 years, and stepped out to become an executive coach. And when I did, I felt kind of small.
I'm sure.
Here I had gone from being a national partner in a global firm with resources at my fingertips to Kimberly Roush, entrepreneur, one-woman show.
Right.
No executive administrative assistant anymore. And, I made my own photocopies and bought the photocopier. So, I naturally had a coaching conversation on it with my coach, who I still use to this day. And, he just asked me, well, who are you when you're big? And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, did you leave any part of you at KPMG? Did you leave your personality, your accomplishments? I'm like, no. And he's, well, who are you when the best of you is showing up? And it really sent me on an exploration of understanding what my values were and my strengths and who I was when I was thriving. And I've gone on to share that question over the past 8 years with over 1,500 people. And just seen the power of that question to transform. And that's what led to writing the book ultimately. And, I've spoken my entire career, but speaking as a profession and paid speaking has been a great addition to my executive coaching business. Love doing it. I've always loved speaking, and now to be able to inspire broader ranges of audiences and bigger groups of people is pretty fun.
So what did you discover after you answered that question? I'm anxious to know. That's a fascinating question.
What did I discover? When I originally answered it, it was something like, I'm happy, I'm confident, I'm smiling, singing, doing the I got it going on dance. I'm energized, I'm engaged, I'm not procrastinating, I'm not, feeling small, whatever, just a variety of things. When I wrote the book, I actually became much, I spent a lot more time really kind of exploring the question, because every chapter in the book actually begins with what I call a big statement. And I do a boot camp for executives who are in transition. And we have them do this in week 4, this exercise. And they write out a whole thing on who they are when they're big. And to see their faces light up as they truly stand in their full power. And not only that, they're being witnessed by all the other people in the room. And I'll read just a little bit of mine for you.
Great.
I think that would be kind of fun. So I actually had broken it down into different sections. Sorry, I didn't have it handy here. So when I am big, as a coach, I challenge and inspire. I listen and I'm curious. I'm compassionate and empathetic. I don't fix because nobody is broken. And I don't help because nobody is helpless. I serve. I believe in the greatness inside of people, and I acknowledge their humanity. I relish every moment of what I'm doing. I collaborate with those who are equally passionate about their life's work. I hold my clients big, and I have the privilege of getting to witness their magnificence emerge.
That's awesome. I like that.
So that's as a coach. I've got different categories and whatnot, but it's just been a really fun question. And what I realized is that, big is a state of mind. Every moment of every day I had a choice. I could feel small. And who was going to hire me as an executive coach if I felt small about myself, right? Mm-hmm. Or I could just step into being every bit of who Kimberly Roush was. And that was a moment I could choose every moment of every day. That was a position I could choose, or a state of mind, if you will. And what I realized is that big comes from within. It's not I'm big when I have a title, or when I have, somebody's approval, or when somebody likes me, or, when I've accomplished something. It's when I am big, I do those things, right?
Right.
So very different perspective, if you will. You don't have to wait for anybody to give you permission to be big.
So did you just kind of make up your mind, this is what I want to be, and therefore I'm going to be it? Is that sort of how that works?
It's more like, this is who I am when I'm fully empowered.
Okay.
And why not live my life from there?
And how do
why
you
not
live your
life from that resourceful state? You already are, right? So it's not a matter of becoming that. It's a matter of just owning all that you are when you're thriving.
And I know it would be a really lengthy explanation, but how do you go living your life like that? Well,
it's interesting. The first thing is recognize when you're not there, right? Mm-hmm. If you're feeling small, or if you're, like, for me, my famous, thing is I'm probably procrastinating. I'm probably doubting myself. I'm probably just not feeling my best, right? And just being able to kind of shift my perspective into a more resourceful place. I absolutely believe in this world that there are no unresourceful people. There are only unresourceful states of mind. And that everybody either, in coaching, there's a really core premise that people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, and that it's not my job to give them the answer. It's my job to ask them the question that gets them unstuck, that moves them forward, that releases whatever is in their way.
If someone's doubting themselves, how do you approach them to help them figure that out?
Well, I help them, understand, is it truth, or is it, the doubt that they have in themselves? Is it a fact-based thing, or is it just simply that, they're looking at a new challenge and they're a little anxious? Of course they'd be anxious looking at a brand new thing, right? Oftentimes anxiety feels exactly the same as excitement, but we misdiagnose it, right?
Right.
And it can stifle us a little bit. So the first thing is just check out, is it real? And what are they actually feeling? Like, what's underneath that? What are they saying to themselves? Are they, if they're doubting themselves, are they saying, I don't know how, or I can't, or they might be looking at a task that is huge, and well, how do we break it down into just the small steps? What would make it easy? My coach's favorite question for me is, what would make it easy? Every time I'm struggling with something, and that's actually a core premise of Big, because when you're in that state of mind, challenges become opportunities. They don't become obstacles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everything's easy and effortless. So that was a perfect question to kind of lead into something that's really a core premise of who are you when you're big.
Okay, fascinating. Now, do you, of course, you're coaching executives with this kind of information. What about the people you don't have time to get to? I mean, there's millions of people, you just can't get to them. Do you have some kind of videos or something that people can learn on their own? Do you ever do that?
Well, we have the book, Who Are You When You Are Big? It's available on Amazon. And, that's a resource to people. So I do one-on-one coaching, but I also offer a free program for executives who are in transition. When I first started my business, I found that paying it forward and helping people in a time of need was a great way to help people understand the power of coaching, help people, at a time of need, and then they would remember, later on when the time came, who I was and what I did. And, a lot of people have misconceptions about coaching. They think it's for people who are broken or, people who have some sort of an issue. And actually, if you look at great athletes, they all have many coaches. It's the greatest of the executives that, recognize that they got there by investing in themselves and continue to invest in their growth and their leadership and their development. And so while I coach one-on-one with folks, I also do this free boot camp program where we have 14 people go through every single month. It's a free 4-week program every Tuesday afternoon for 3 hours. Mm-hmm. And we've had over 1,000 people go through it in 8 years, which has been pretty fun. So I think, between the people I've touched with that and, the tools that they've been provided that they've gone on to use with additional people, it's kind of fun to think that there's been a ripple effect of the impact.
No kidding. That's fantastic. Let's move forward and talk about some of the other topics you speak on. You mentioned leadership, communication, and emotional intelligence. What are you doing leadership-wise?
So leadership, when I speak on leadership, I tend to think of 3 main areas, 3 main messages. And the first one is to lead yourself first. A lot of my topics actually tie together, and I think emotional intelligence has a lot to do with leading yourself first. But, some of that is around personal branding, right? We judge ourselves based upon our intentions, but other people judge us based upon our actions. If I'd looked at myself in public accounting, I probably would have said that I was hardworking, loyal, dedicated, the go-to person, the person that will take on the gnarly job, right? And if I really had to be honest, there was probably, some times that I was stressed out, overwhelmed, and frustrated, right?
Right.
And unfortunately, if we're not careful, our stress behaviors can define us because branding's about being consistent, right? Mm-hmm. And so I might have been on brand 95% of the time, but if 5% my stress behaviors showed up and they were pretty significant, then I was not really leading myself first. And so some of it is just self-awareness and self-management, which actually are 2 of the first 2 premises of emotional intelligence. And I tie that into personal branding because people, I absolutely believe that behind every behavior is a positive intention, right? Nobody gets up and intends to be a jerk in the morning.
Yeah, right.
And so they probably don't understand that their actions are not reinforcing the brand that they want to be putting out there. And so I find that by putting it in the context of branding, people kind of get that. And it's pretty easy. So pretty easy concept for them to grasp and shift and change. And when you put something in a context that is easy for people, it's easy for them to act upon it. So lead yourself first is kind of the core, one of the core premises when I speak on leadership. The second thing is play with positivity. I think leadership is about amplifying people's strengths. I think Peter Drucker said leadership is amplifying your strengths in such a way that your weaknesses become irrelevant. And I'm not saying that you never work on weaknesses, but I'll tell you what, when I started amplifying my strengths of coaching and developing and mentoring and challenging and inspiring people and making that be the core of what I did every day, and had my compensation tied to that as opposed to, auditing IT controls and financial statement disclosure checklists, my life changed. And I think, leaders inspire people, and you tend to do that more from a positive place than from a beating them up place or putting fear in the workplace place, or frame of mind, if you will. And so positivity, if you look at the brain, I love Barbara Fredrickson's work on positivity. She's actually a physiologist. Well, she's a psychologist that looks at positive psychology from the physiological aspects. In other words, what's going on within our bodies. And when we're in a fearful state of mind or a place of negative emotions, our amygdala kicks in and we're running away from saber-toothed tigers, right? And so we're not really concerned about anybody but ourselves and kind of a survival instinct. And as long as I run faster than you, you're lunch and I'm not, right?
Right.
And so our peripheral vision actually shrinks. She's been able to prove that so that we can't see things. When we're in a state of positive emotions, we're more creative, we're more resourceful, we're more, we relate better to other people. We're more innovative. And so if you look at corporate America today, all too often the prevalent feeling in corporate America is fear or, burnout or stress or negative emotions. How do we transform that? How do we shift that into a positive place where people come in and want to be engaged in their jobs every day? Gallup says that 30% of our workforce is all that's engaged. Which means that 70% of our workforce isn't actively engaged in their jobs every day. What if we could just shift that one number? How much more productive could we be as a society, and how much more enjoyable would people's jobs be every day if they were actually engaged in what they were doing as opposed to sort of just going through the motions?
Fantastic. Well,
huge impact.
Well, Kimberly, we've come to our time limit. I hate that because I think I could chat with you for probably the next 24 hours.
Always fun.
When people want to get a hold of you to have you speak or learn more, how can they do that?
They can go to one of two websites if they are interested in Who Are You When You Are Big. The website is www.gettingtobig.com, and my coaching website is www.allstarexecutivecoaching.com.
Okay, very good. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for joining us today. That was fascinating information. I love speaking with speakers, authors, because the information that I get to learn is awesome, and you really made my day.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. This was fun.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.